Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Okay, I see a lot of ladies here today.
Yeah, give yourself a hand, ladies.
Okay, before we started, we would really appreciate if everybody takes a few seconds to turn your any mobile device silent. Thank you. Okay, so we don't have much time. Let's just dive in. Okay, Minerva, I'm very excited to talk to you here now. And when I first read your profile, I saw you have been in many different kind of industries. Like you've been advertising, you work in startup, and now you are in banking, right? So can you, before we start talk more details, can you give us a introduction of all the different career paths you have been in?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jamie. I first want to say, very important, I'm really, really honored to be here. Very, very humbled to see so many of you here, and especially the amazing, powerful, beautiful women here. Thank you so much for coming. One of the reasons I do these speeches is to help to make more visible women in technology. You know, originally the women used to run technology. Some of the first inventors of the first computer called ENIAC was actually 6 women developed this for IBM. And so I'm really, really honored to be here. And I didn't start out trying to be a woman technologist. You know, I was studying medicine. I went to college to be a doctor, like every good Asian American girl should do. And so part of my studies took me to psychology. And in studying the psychology class, we had to use a computer to do statistical analysis, which you do in a lot of the experiments. And that's when I first started to use a computer. And once I started to work with a computer, I fell in love. That was it. No more medicine. I stayed in the computer center for the next 3 years and didn't look back at all. It was an amazing experience. And so, you know, as you said, I went into a lot of industries, and that's one of the wonderful things about a career in technology is everything now is run with technology. Back then, it was in the early 1980s, people didn't actually know what a computer was necessarily. The Apple computer had just come out in 1984, so really the very, very beginning of this. But you know, when I was a junior in college, another student and I decided to leave school and start a company. So I feel very much connected to startups and entrepreneurs. Something that, you know, a lot of people did not do 30 years ago. Now a lot of people are very open to starting a company and doing it on their own and doing it from college. Back then, you know, I gave up a career in medicine and started to left school before I graduated to start a company with another student in Silicon Valley. And from there, the journey went, you know, to all of the next wave of innovation. So this first company was a software company in artificial intelligence. I had started using AI programming to study how the mind works and how to teach computers how to think. And to even today, we are teaching computers and software to be smarter, to run your home, to be able to predict what will happen next. And so this is something that continues to this day. And I really just followed my passion. I didn't really have that much of a plan. I think only when you look backwards, as Steve Jobs said in his graduation speech, famous graduation speech, the dots only connect when you look backwards. When you look forward, there's no dots. You just have to follow what you're interested in and what you want to do. And so that took me from starting a software company, which we then sold. I did go back to college and finish my degree. And then after that, the next wave was, in desktop publishing and graphical user interfaces. And that's how I ended up starting a graphics computer division within a internet public relations firm. And then I ended up moving into advertising as CTO of Gray Direct Advertising from there. We did some of the very first click ads and were able to measure the effectiveness of advertisements then. That was now in 1997. And then from there, moved on to the next big wave from internet to mobile. And I ended up being the senior product manager at Palm Computing. They made the Palm pilots back then. I also spent some time in consulting, learning a lot about lots of different industries and how technology can transform those businesses. And then about 10 years ago, went into the financial world, primarily to do mobile and apply intelligence to mobile applications. And that was when we filed some US patents for intelligent workflow. And now here in Asia, just moved here about 20 months ago as CTO for Chief Technology Officer for UBS.
Okay. Wow. That's great. So you mentioned that you started company. That was your first working experience. So can you tell us how that impacts on your future careers?
Yeah, I would say that it was the most important and defining moment of my career was starting my own company, when I was 20. And I think it really is an amazing experience because in a startup, you do everything. No one is really telling you this is your job and this is not your job. Your job is everything. You learn very quickly how to do things. You have to rely on your own ability to be part of a team, and it's really so much more impactful what you do, because you know that if you miss one thing, that's everything you do is important. Now, of course, there's a lot of pressure. For those of you out there who are in your own startups, I feel the pain also of the day-to-day pressure, because on the other hand, everything is on you. Everything you do will affect, the future of your company. And so it's two sides of the same coin. On the one hand, you are in control of your own destiny, and you don't have the people above you telling you what to do. You are those people for yourself. But it's an amazing experience. I know we talked to Jamie about, you get to do a little of everything. You're the marketing person, you're the developer, you're the product manager. You have to work with the lawyers. You have to think about your competitors. You have to go to the trade shows. You are doing, all of the finance, the work, the hiring, the firing, and it's an incredible experience. And I also firmly believe that it doesn't matter your age either. I think at the time I was very, very young, and people thought maybe I was the intern or something. Bring the coffee. No, actually, I'm in charge here. Sorry, So So when I meet people, I look at what they bring to the table, not how long they've lived on Earth, and so that has changed how I manage teams. When I did end up moving into a more corporate world, I've made every effort to run my teams like little startups inside big companies. I think the management style and even the development style of programming, the more agile and iterative approach, is very much rooted in how my start in the startups came. So I do value people who can just jump in and do what is needed to do, and those folks who work with me know that that's how our teams run. You just do whatever you need to do at that moment. You don't worry about, this is not my job and this is their job. So I think, now it makes me very, very happy to see more and more people thinking of doing their own startup. It's much more popular now, and I think it's a great opportunity for innovation and for making even faster, more accelerated change in the world.
Yeah, and it just I heard that that company was a huge success. Right?
Well, I wouldn't say huge. I mean, I think Mark Zuckerberg has a little bit more money than I do. But for me, we were able to take some venture capital, and we were able to exit successfully. We sold the company to Computer Associates. Like I said, it's not, Hotmail money or something, but it was enough, to feel like we had built something and we had successfully sold it. The product continued to be sold for another 10 years after that. And, I was just looking back at some of the archives from Silicon Valley. One of my heroes from that period, her name is Esther Dyson, and she used to write a newsletter called Release 1.0. She's still very much a very powerful venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, and she started to write this newsletter called Release 1.0, where she would review software. This was starting in the 1980 to around 1995. And, I still look at the product, and I'm very, very proud to have been part of it. And even more importantly, the folks that I started the company with back then are still my dear, dear friends now. We still see each other 30 years later. We're still the best friends that you could possibly have.
Yeah, I think that's a very special part of working in startup. You just have that connection with your partners, and you feel like you're in the same family, and that relationship, it's very special. As I'm working at the startup too, and I think for someone who are working for startup, if what you are doing survived, I think that is already a very huge success. Yes. So I've also wondered. So you started your company in Silicon Valley in 1985. What was that look like? Like back that time, we don't have iPad, mobile. We probably don't have internet. And what are people trying to do? Like what kind of problems they are trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's funny. The more things change, the more they stay the same. We didn't have a lot of money, so what we did was we rented a house. It turned out to be through a connection, and we were able to rent a very big house in near Palo Alto Research Center in a little place outside of Stanford called Atherton. And the advantage of that house was that it had 6 bedrooms and then a big space, and also a tennis court and swimming pool. But what we did was we all lived together in the bedrooms in the back, and my office was literally in the garage. It was a large garage that had enough room for 3 cars, and instead it had my desk and a pool table and a car. And I used, my commute was from the bedroom in the back through the kitchen to get some coffee into the garage. And we spent a year or so doing a lot of the development. But I think, you know, there's now like a co-work space and a co-living space that is starting to be popular. I think we kind of invented that.
Cool. How about the big like environment? Like everybody else, what were they doing at that time?
So at that time was just the beginning of the personal computer and the idea that you could use a mouse and menus. And so one of the first important technical decisions that I needed to make was what platform, what computer should we run our software on? And I remember that there were 3 different tools out there: Interleaf, Gem, and something new called Windows. And we were trying to decide whether, you know, which one of these would be the winner, because if you put your product on the wrong platform, no one will buy it. And so I remember the meetings that we had, and we were just choosing Microsoft mainly because we figured out that, you know, most of the corporate customers at the time, which were our target market, were running disk operating system DOS, and so we said, well, let's go with Windows, see how that works out. And, you know, again, it's always these decisions, you know, should I do, you know, which device should I put my product on, or what kind of operating system should I use? And sometimes you just don't know, you just have to go with your instinct and see if it will work out. And of course, you know, it did work out. We had to rewrite the whole software from the Lisp, which is the artificial intelligence programming language, and put it onto to C, which is what was running on Windows at the time. There were other things as well. There was the time, very, very exciting time in Silicon Valley. For those of you who know the history of it, you know, that was when Oracle and Sun and other companies were just starting in that time. And we were all part of this ecosystem of technology. We didn't quite know what was going to happen. We just knew it was something really big. And this feeling that you get, you know, when you see something's on the verge of change. And this was a place that was really, you know, where you used to grow fruit and garlic. It was all farmland, right? And I think that with the Apple IPO, a lot of venture money started flowing in from Kleiner Perkins, and then more technologists moved to the area. And I think I have the similar feeling about Shenzhen. You know, it's starting to feel like I had that feeling back then, that it's really starting to come together in this space. Also, it used to be farms 30 years ago, and this confluence of forces is really giving me that same feeling I had in Silicon Valley in the 80s.
Oh, that's cool. So Shenzhen is going to be next. Silicon Valley. It's exciting. So, many of you probably might not know that in the United States, the number of women represented in undergraduate computer science was like 37% in 1994. So now in 2012, it was 12%. So, wow, that is a dramatically like decline. Yeah, like can you tell that was really I was really surprised to get to know that from you. Like, can you tell us more about that?
Yes, it's so interesting that when I was studying, it was about 37-40% in my class studying programming, and then over the years this has gone very much down in the U.S. and I try to understand why, because I think that men and women are equal when it comes to technology and programming, and it's now becoming an issue for a lot of corporations because there are more technology jobs out there than they can fill. And if you have only half of the population even studying, computer programming, you're not going to have enough pipeline to fill those jobs. I personally think technology is a fantastic career, male or female. You get to move around different industries, you get to invent something new, you change the world, every day with your keyboard. There's nothing like it. That's one of the reasons that I, try to promote more women in technology. However, and this I have no real statistics for, one thing I have observed though in China, both here in Shenzhen and in Beijing, is that there seems to be much less difference between men and women in technology, and this makes me so happy, and you are very lucky, I think, that we don't have the same difference between men and women here in China that I have observed. And but in the U.S., it's certainly, if you ask a 12-year-old girl, do you like math? She will say no. And it gets lower and lower, every year. So even if someone is very, very good at math, or computers, the girls in the U.S. don't end up studying it.
But I heard that there are more programs actually encourage women to go to that direction. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are programs now in the U.S. called Girls Who Code and female-focused hackathons, and then you have more famous women, who are senior technology people like Marissa Mayer and Sheryl Sandberg. So I think it's starting to turn again, and I hope that it will continue in the forward direction, and we can have more awesome girl coders.
Yeah, actually, we were just curious last time. Actually, I want to ask how many women here know at least basic knowledge or experience with coding, with programming. Okay. How many of us want to code? Want to code, now or in the future? Okay. How many of us know any woman know how to code? Cool. Yeah, some.
Wow. Okay. Come see me after class. The ones who didn't raise your hand, come and see me after class.
Good. We will change your mind.
One comment on that, and I think hopefully this will start to happen more, is to make programming a required class, just like math and language. And so you just won't have a choice, right? So you can't say, oh, I decided not to study math. That's not an option, right? So I think as more and more your computer literacy, your understanding of computer language will be just like your need to study the English language or Mandarin language. I think it will start to be more. I know in Singapore they're passing a law where it will become part of the basic curriculum.
Wow, that's a big step for them to take. And that's true though. Like this, like learn how to code is going to be something like learn how to speak English. You know, it will be a tool like for you to, or like to do something, anything. Yeah. Okay, so you work with a lot of programmers. So what are those things that you are looking for when you want to hire a team member, like program code, somebody like that?
Yeah, I think the best, the best thing that learning how to code teaches you is learning how to solve a problem. It's the very basic part of it is you have some idea, but then you have to break down the steps to get to the solution. And then once you've broken down the steps, then you can create the pieces of the puzzle that will solve that problem. And so when I look for talent in the technology, I look for the people who can creatively solve a problem first. And then second, of course you have to be very detail oriented, but I think even more important is to also be able to step back and see the bigger picture. And one of the things also that is very important is this notion of teaching people how to be innovative. And not just, to do what somebody else has done, but actually to think, how can this be different? How can I make this better, faster, or coming up with a new idea? This is, to me, the most exciting part of what we do, is not just to execute on what has already been decided, but to really question how it's being done.
How can do better, can better solution.
That's right.
Yeah.
That used to get me in trouble, actually,
Why?
I mean, I would say, wait, but why are you even doing it this way? Or I was always asking, how come you're doing it this way and not that way? And why don't we produce it, some other way? And I don't think that's right. And, and in fact, that's something that, if you're a good employee, you won't actually ask too many questions. And so again, because I started in the startup, that was my job, was to question everything and come up with a better way. And so, it takes a little bit of bravery, but in the end, you might help everyone by asking that question. If something doesn't make sense, to trust what you're thinking and speak up.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice for a lot of women. Like a lot of times we just even we have some ideas, we have questions, we don't ask. We always just do what other people tell us to do. I think that's a very good point. So it seems like there are a lot of progress have been made on this woman and men and eco issues. So do you think that men and women are like on the equal ground nowadays? We have the same resource, we have same requirements. Like, what do you think?
I think, on many levels, yes. I mean, I don't believe there's a woman brain and a man brain when it comes to, technology. But I think there are differences in terms of how society views you. I'll tell you a story where I was, at the time, I always wanted to be a CTO. I wanted the title, Chief Technology Officer.
Wow, so you actually are very goal-oriented. Now you have it.
Yes, and then also I was married, I wanted to have a child as well. And in 1997, both happened at the same time. I was up for a job, and then also I found out that I was going to have a baby at the same time. I was trying for my first CTO job. And I was very worried, actually. I thought, should I take this job? This is, great news, but I'm just about to hit my next career goal, and I didn't know what to do. So I talked to a very good friend who said to me, look, you're perfect for that job. You're going to do a fantastic job at this company, and you're going to be a great mom. You can do both, don't question it. And so it took that one word of encouragement, and I decided to go for it. And everything worked out well. It made for some funny stories along the way, having meetings and, holding a baby and, all that stuff. I went into labor at the office. We were launching a website, and a kid, but it all worked out really, really well with the support and help of other people. So I do think there is a difference. I think that if I were a man, I wouldn't have the same question: should I take this job? Should I have this family now? But I can only say that it does all work out. Just believe in yourself. Don't limit yourself. I hear a lot of young women say, well, I would go into a technology career, but I want to have a family someday. And I think they put it in their own mind that they can only do one or the other. You can really do it. It's not easy, sometimes not pretty, but it is possible to have what you want.
That's great. So you talk about the words from your friend. So it then reminds me. Now we have a lot of women club. We have a lot of women networking or social aid. What do you think of those? Are they really necessary for us? Do we really need those kind of special care? You said we're equal. So if there's no men club, networking club, why we need to have something just for girls? I want to be with everyone. What do you think? What of that?
No, I think that's a very good point. I mean, I've had a lot of time to think about this. But one of the things is there is a men's club. It's called Technology World. And I can say, that most of the week I spend my time, on meetings and with my staff is made almost entirely up of men. Which is fine. I love men; they're great. But I can see how if you were just coming into this industry and you go to a conference and you're the only, let's say you're a man and you go to a conference, and you see that you're the only man, you might wonder, oh, is this really the right place for me, right? You would wonder, right? And so that's how the women feel when they go to a technology place, right? You're the only woman on the phone. It's not even, on purpose. You just think to yourself, you look around, and you see that everyone else is different, and you feel a little bit not quite right. So I do think that it's a balance, like everything. I think it's nice to have a women's club where you can maybe feel a little more comfortable, or today, women half off, yay! Where you can feel a little bit less of that, do I belong here? But I think also it's important for you to take part in the actual space itself. In the world out there, whether it's, men, women, American, Chinese, you just want to go into the field that you're chosen and feel in yourself that you do belong there. Not only that you are the best one there.
Okay, So you said something like that. So when you first use a computer, you said, "Wow, this is something gonna change the world," right? You had this kind of feeling. So do you still have this feeling? Like what are those things that make you have that feeling again? So basically, it means what are those things that make you excited now?
Yeah, so I mean, I did spend a lot of my the last few years in the mobile space. I actually did help to edit a book on the mobile internet in 2001, a long time ago. And it's nice to see that, you know, now it's really come full. Like, to be able to see the possibility of something that doesn't really look like anything at all, maybe just a crazy idea, and to have that feeling that, you know, maybe not now, but 5 or 10 years from now, that this will be a big change. And you know, so in the beginning of mobile, people were saying to me, people will never watch TV on their phones. That's crazy, you know. Why would anybody do that, you know? And it's too difficult to type on these, you know. And why would anyone, you know, use it to send a message? Why not just call someone, right? And now most people text rather than call. And so sometimes you have those crazy ideas. So some crazy ideas I'm thinking of around now is related to the wearable computing, the embedded computing that we wear on your watch or the Google Glass, and the more personalized devices, as well as changes in the financial technology. That will be very, very interesting as well, and payments and other areas where you might, you know, wear your bank on your watch kind of thing. Of course, 3D printing is an exciting area as well, and certainly very much perfect for China in the sense that there's manufacturing centers here, and the kind of manufacturing that you can do using 3D printing will likely change a lot of how products get made moving forward. So those are some of the trends I would see that are really changing in sort of the advanced innovation stage. And also other areas are maturing and will likely change over. Social media as becoming, you know, really the media, right? And, you know, so we'll see a lot more around the kinds of network effects that social media is creating, and how people make decisions about what to do, where to go, and then finally around data itself, the big data that people call it, using artificial intelligence and predictive analytics to be able to study and understand the trends in advance of them happening, and creating the ultimate mass customized products will also be, I think, something we'll see in the next 5 to 10 years.
Great, thank you. I just had this idea. I want to hear your thoughts. So actually, there are two types of people. One type of people like you, when they see the changes, they get excited and they want to get involved, be part of it. And another type of people, when they see the changes, they say, okay, we'll sit back and see what is next. So my original question actually was, what kind of advice you can give to people who wants to code? That was my original question. Actually, now I want to change it. I want to say, what kind of advice you want to give to women actually who want to be involved in those changes?
Yes, I thank you for that question, because you know, the most important thing is to be in it and not just watch it. You know, And I know that with Startup Grind, same thing, be a giver, not a taker. You can only win by giving what you have, your opinion, your time, and so I think the advice for women and men, is to, in order to be part of the change, think about what you have that you can contribute to that change. Maybe it's an understanding of the market, maybe it is programming, or maybe it's inventing a new way to solve a problem that you and your friends have. A lot of the best ideas came from someone saying, I wish I could get a table at that restaurant, and how can I do this, in advance, or I wish there was a car, taxi nearby. How can I get that so I can go home? So for me, I think it's just to be a part of it and to make sure that you're in it, for the whole. I will say this, which is, sometimes people think, oh yeah, I will make a startup and then I'll make so much money and all this, I think it has to be a little bit more than that to motivate you. You have to really believe in the change that you're making and to be part of that, to participate in this time, which is a very exciting time, and not just watch it from behind your desk.
Thank you. Okay, so let's take questions.
Thank you. I would like to ask you one question about characters. You work in this era in this real world is, I think it's still the many parties belong to men. And in your opinion, what's the most important characters for women to want to start up their own businesses? What that's a personality requested, in your opinion? Thank you.
So let me make sure you're saying what kind of personality characters is good. I think this is true for men and women and entrepreneurs, right? You need a little bit of overconfidence, I think, and maybe being a little too humble is not good, right? Because you have to be a tiny bit crazy, right? To do what you need to do to start your own idea or your own project, even within your company. You can be an entrepreneur inside your firm as well, which is what I've been doing since then, right? Is to come up with an idea that you don't necessarily, everyone else maybe is telling you is not right. And so, when you're in a space where everyone's telling you you're not right and you're still saying you're right, that's kind of a little crazy, right? So also, you have to have a very thick skin. This I learned very early on. This means like you cannot take so many things personally. If someone is saying, "Why are you here? What's going on? Why do they let you do this?" There will always be people who try to say these things to you. If you want to succeed, you really have to not care very much what other people say, and you have to also not take it personally. I think it's been very helpful to me to think about it as this says more about the person who's saying it to you, not about me. It's like, I feel bad for you that you have to say these things. Sorry for you. And then you carry on, But I have to say, on a more positive side, I'll tell one story. You may not know this, but when I came to Hong Kong, I was a big cyclist. but I decided to try something very Chinese, and so I started to do dragon boat. And last year was so fun that this year I decided to join our elite team, which will do more competitions, more races, and train much longer and harder. And I love the dragon boat so much, I joined the team. Well, I went to the first practice, and it was all men. And they were all very big, you know, strong men. And I said, "Oh, hello. Is this, you know, the dragon boat practice?" And they said, "Well, yes, come on in the boat, you know." And so I would say we've been practicing since October, and we've just had our first few races. And you know, one of the best things about it is that these guys really, they only cared about, am I going to paddle as well as them? And that's all I cared about. I didn't want to be a special case where they just let the woman just splash around. You know, we have to all move the boat at the same time, as fast together. I learned so much about teamwork and leadership on the dragon boat and acceptance, you know. And I have to really, you know, give my thanks to my male teammates for that. One of them's in the background there. You know, for being so welcoming. And this year so far we've won a few trophies already. We're racing very well. But I love it when the other teams look at us and see the men's team, and they, you know, ask me if I'm the drummer or something. And I'm like, no, paddling also, you know. And that we actually are faster than some of the other boats that have all men. Question?
Hello, thank you, Minerva. So my question is, I prefer not to use a microphone because my voice is loud anyways. My question is, gender inequality in the workforce is a big problem, but from what I read, it's usually from a woman's narrative, and usually offers solutions for women. My question is, it's a two-sided problem, so what can men be doing to help this?
Wow, what's your name? Hi, great question, great question. Yes, because you brought up a really important point, because it's one of the things that really makes me want to speak up, because it's not a woman's problem, gender inequality. It's everyone's problem that we have to have men and women participate in making everything more equal for everyone. And so when I have been going through the last 30 years of my career, all of my mentors, all of my bosses have been men, right? And they took the time to nurture that technologist in me. They could see, something that they wanted to grow, and they could see the potential. And it was those senior people in the firm that took the time. They didn't care, that men or women, they can see if there's a potential there, they will just grow it. And so I think, you have to be a little bit brave, I think, to do that. So we need brave men and women, to do something a little unusual and just look at the talent and grow that. And, I think also to have a little more compassion for that one woman in the room, and make them just like my teammates did, feel really welcome and just part of the team, And for me, it was they were willing to criticize me and tell me if I was doing something wrong, just like anybody else on the boat, you know, I didn't want any special treatment, right? So, so I think that's a big part of it as well, is just treat everyone, you know, equally and not try to think of how to make them feel more different. I mean, there are some big advantages, I would say, from being a woman in technology. One, everyone remembers who you are and they know your name. Two, in the office, there's never a line for the ladies' room. You pretty much have it to yourself. You know, you never have to wait there. And three, I think, you know, you can use it to your advantage if you're sort of different, a little bit different, and people remember you. You take that moment and use it for good. You know, because you know that people will remember what you said. And so you can use it to show how much you know about something. And for me, I did feel a little bit like I had to prove myself a little more. And I thought, I think that helped me because I made sure I really knew what I was talking about. I made sure I studied everything even twice as hard and worked, you know, more just to show that I could be the same. But for me, I think that was a good thing because it made me better than I would have been. Not lazy, you know, to keep pushing myself even harder, always.
Thank you. More questions?
Hi, thank you for doing this speech, and I have two questions to ask. I'm just graduated from university last year, but you talked about that you started up something after graduation, but I feel like I don't have the resources, like I don't have friends or money to start up something. Do you have any recommendation for that?
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of stuff is really luck, you know, and for me, I had it happen like a kind of chance meeting. I went on a holiday to visit my friend in California, and I overheard some people talking about artificial intelligence, and I went up to them and said, "Oh, I studied artificial intelligence, and you don't know what you're talking about." This is how you should do it. And they're like, looked at me like, "Who are you?" And then, of course, but that week they said, "Join our company." So we're just thinking of this idea. You have to be part of it. And that's why I ended up, you know, while I was still a junior, to staying there and finishing, you know, the thoughts, the business plan, and everything else. So luckily for me, at that time, they had already secured some funding. They had an idea, but they were still working on how to actually design the product, which I happened to be one of the few people in the United States studying artificial intelligence at that time. And so for me, it was, you know, kind of a very lucky, sometimes it really is just, you know, dumb luck, you know. And, you know, but I think if you have an idea, if there's more availability now for, with the accelerators and incubators, you can go to a startup weekend or, you know, a hackathon and work on your idea and refine it. And then if it's good enough, you know, you can get the exposure to do it. You can also do it on your own time as well with a kind of bootstrap idea. Maybe you don't want to go for your funding right away. You just want to work on your idea for a little while, test market it, and then later, you know, go for funding. I think what's more important is your product and your idea that you want to do than trying to get a venture capitalist, you know, to from the very beginning.
And the second question is that do you have any recommendation for people who don't know what they want to do? Like for the first question you have, you recommend some people that they know what they want to do, but there are a lot of people that don't know what their interest is in. So that's a problem.
Yeah, that's great. You know, it's funny because I still don't know what I want to do. when I grow up. I don't know when's that going to happen. I'm not sure. But you know, it's so funny because we you know, especially in your 20s, you end up. I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. I just sort of did it, you know. And I think that's kind of the way you kind of ought to have in your life. You think that I'm going to do A, and then B, and then C, and once I have A, B, and C, then I can get married and have a kid. It does not work that way. You know, you can have a goal. I think it's important to say, you know, I can do anything, but I'm going to try this first, right? So it gives you the option of trying something, and then if you tried it for a couple of years, or you learn a little bit more about yourself, and you say, boy, I'm good at this, but not that, you know, then you have the freedom to make another plan. You know, it's not just the one big momentous decision of your life that's going to determine, you know, everything. I think especially when you just come out of school, those first 10 years out of school, just get out there and do something. Don't just think about doing something. That's the worst thing you can do, is just keep thinking about it, right? At least if you go out there and try something, you might discover something about yourself that you didn't know. You know, I came to Asia. I grew up in New York. I was born in the Philippines. I grew up in New York City, and I was given an opportunity to take an assignment here in Asia. And you know, it actually didn't work out exactly what I pictured in my mind, at all. But it, in fact, was better, right? So, you know, the fact that I just said, well, here's what I think is going to happen, and here's all the great stuff I'm going to be doing, and then if none of that happened, actually, but all this other amazing stuff happened, you know? So you just have to just get out there and start doing something. And also the world will tell you a little bit, too. Listen to, you know, the feedback that you get, and take it to see what your path is going to be. And there's a great article that was in the New York Times. It says, you know, it was called "You Can't Find a Job, Invent It." So, you know, the job I have today didn't exist when I was in school, so I couldn't have planned for any of this, right? And so, you know, and there's new kinds of jobs happening every day. And especially now, I see we need more data scientists. We need more people in cybersecurity. Those are two areas where, if you study those, you will never be out of a job. I'm not kidding. You know, so there's other ways to do it. You know, does that help? Yeah. So just don't worry about it. Just go out there and try something. You know.
Thank you.
Okay, last question.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this with us. And actually, I have two questions. The first one is that what's the biggest challenge you have met as a female entrepreneur? And how do you overcome these difficulties? And maybe later.
Boy, well, there have been many challenges along the way, you know, and I think it's true of anyone as someone who's had a lot of years to learn about themselves. I think for me, the biggest challenge was asking for help, and you know, because I have always felt like I need to do everything. You know, I need to show that I don't need anyone's help. And the scariest thing I ever did was ask for help. You know, is to understand your own shortcomings and say, I need someone to do this. I need someone to help me with that, and that makes you stronger and not weaker. You know, I think maybe especially women, you know, they're used to taking care of everything all the time, and they don't know how to ask for help. And so for me, that's been my biggest challenge. And once I learned that it's okay to say, I don't know this, you know, or I need someone else to help me with this, and biggest challenge that I had to face was really in myself.
Thank you so much for sharing. And my second question is that you mentioned that Shenzhen is just like the Silicon Valley, and I just wonder what made you think about this. And maybe you know that in recent years, a lot of Chinese cities like Suzhou and Tianjin, their GDP even higher than Shenzhen, and a lot of people worry about that Shenzhen maybe not as the population will not be as the population it is today. So, what do you think the advantages for the startups for Shenzhen?
That's a good question. So I think Shenzhen and its sister city, Hong Kong, I think that combination is extremely powerful because you have the financial hub, just a little bit over the border. You have the kinds of innovative and creative labs here, the proximity to the manufacturing centers, and the different pieces that I see. The parallels are the legal systems, the venture funds, this financing in general, the kind of concentration of educated, smart, entrepreneurial people, and the support system around it, things like Startup Grind and others around. Those ingredients are there, So sometimes you see the ingredients and nothing happens, right? But I think that in this case, more and more in just the short time I've been here, I've seen so much more activity. A lot of Western accelerators coming in, looking to invest, more homegrown companies doing well. So I think those are the elements that, it's still up to all of you to make it happen, right? So I'm counting on you all to prove me right, okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for everyone coming, and especially thank you. It was great. I learned a lot personally.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for that. That was amazing. Jeremy, first time interview. Good job. And when we were over there, the translation thing, awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so several little things to talk about before we guys leave. First, thanks to all the ladies for stacking the room with us. We had a good time. We should probably just give some time. Second thing is, next month we're going to have Liam Casey. He's probably like the most badass Irish ever existed on earth. His company, PCH, is like one of the biggest partners with Apple. He's a billionaire, and he has incubator factory here, over 2,000 employees in China, and doesn't speak Mandarin at all. He's coming next month, so expect that. And you guys are welcome to stay and hang out and know each other. Our WeChat is over there. And thank you. Can we take a picture with all the volunteers? Oh, yes, of course.